I never imagined I'd become this kind of woman. The kind who stands in front of her closet for an hour, unsure if she's dressing for a night out or for an escape. The kind who hides makeup wipes in her purse, just in case she needs to erase evidence. The kind who lies. My name is Stephanie. I'm 32. Married. The kind of woman who once believed in forever, who whispered vows under a soft canopy of roses, holding hands with the man she thought she'd grow old with. That man is Jason. He's 38, tall, neat, always put together. Dependable, predictable, and lately, entirely uninterested in me. It started subtly, less hand-holding, fewer glances. Then it grew louder in silence. Whole evenings passed where we barely spoke. He came home late from work, his mind cluttered with meetings and metrics, while I sat on the couch pretending to scroll my phone, pretending I wasn't aching for him to just see me. I tried. God knows I tried. New lingerie, surprise dinners, spontaneous texts. Each one met with distracted nods or tired smiles. Eventually, I stopped trying. Not because I didn't care, but because I was tired of being invisible. One Thursday afternoon, as I folded laundry in silence, my phone buzzed. Lena. Girl. Her voice practically sang through the speaker. You need a night out. Come to the club with me tomorrow. Don't argue. You need this. Lena had always been the wild one. Leather skirts, loud heels, tequila in her coffee if you let her. But she was also the only person who noticed when my smile started to fade. I hesitated. I looked at Jason, slouched in his office across the hall, headset on, eyes locked on spreadsheets like they held the secrets of the universe. I pressed the phone to my ear. Okay. The next evening, I stood before the mirror. Not as Jason's wife, but as a woman I'd forgotten existed. My black dress hugged in all the right places. My curls framed my face like they used to when I still cared how I looked. Red lipstick. Heels that made me taller, sharper, bolder. Jason barely glanced up when I walked past him toward the door. Where you headed? He mumbled, eyes on his laptop. Out with Lena. Just a girls' night. He nodded, not even pretending to care. Have fun. That was the only blessing I needed. The club pulsed like a living thing, neon lights bouncing off walls, bass vibrating through my chest, bodies moving in sync, careless and free. Lena led the way, her hips swaying, her drink already half gone. I followed, unsure if I belonged in this world anymore. Drink this, she said, handing me a glass of something bright and sweet. I took it. I needed the buzz more than I'd admit. We danced. At first, it was awkward, like dusting off a part of me I hadn't touched in years. But after another drink, the rhythm took over. My body remembered how to move. I laughed. I spun. I let go. That's when I saw him. He stood near the bar, tall and smooth-skinned, his gaze burning through the crowd like he was searching for someone, and then he found me. He tilted his head, smirked, and raised his glass. Malik, I'd learn later. In that moment, he was just danger wrapped in temptation. And right beside him, a second figure, broader, darker eyes, his smile more wolf than man.
Dre.
They looked like temptation made flesh. I turned away quickly, heart hammering. But it was too late. They were walking toward me, confidently, like I'd summoned them. Damn, Malik said, voice low and buttery. Who let a goddess in here tonight? I laughed, a sound that surprised me. You talking to me? He nodded. I don't see anyone else lighting up the room. Dre leaned closer. You dance like you know your trouble. I don't dance often, I said, the alcohol loosening my tongue. Then you've been wasting that body, he replied without shame. I should have walked away. Instead, I stayed. I danced. I laughed. I let Dre's hand linger too long on my waist, let Malik's breath tickle my ear as he whispered things I pretended not to hear. The club spun around us, but all I could focus on were their hands, their eyes, the way they made me feel.
Scene.
Jason hadn't touched me like this in years. Hadn't even looked at me like this. I was a ghost in my own home, but here, right now, I was flesh and fire. You married? Malik asked casually, his hand sliding down my back. Yes. And is he here?
No.
Dre leaned in, voice husky. Then he's a fool. I should have walked away. Again. But the seed had already taken root, watered by months of neglect and tonight's whiskey-sweet freedom. The song changed. The lights dimmed. I felt a hand tug mine gently, guiding me off the dance floor. Come with us, Malik whispered, his voice coiling like smoke around my resolve. To where? He smiled. Somewhere quiet. Lena was gone, lost in her own wild night. I looked toward the exit. I could leave. Go home. Back to Jason and silence. But I didn't. I followed. We weaved through the crowd, past pulsing beats and stumbling strangers, until we reached a hallway dimly lit by flickering bulbs. At the end, a single door. The bathroom. My heels clicked on tile. The door clicked shut behind us. And in the mirror above the sink, I saw her.
Me.
Stephanie. But not the wife. Not the one folding laundry and begging for attention. This version had red lips and wild eyes, and a pulse thundering through her throat. Malik stood behind me, his hands on my hips. Dre to the side, lips parted, waiting. No words, just heat. And in that moment, I didn't care if it was wrong. I didn't care if it broke everything. Because for the first time in years, I felt alive. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing me into a world where reality bent and morality blurred. The club's music thumped faintly through the walls, a distant heartbeat that reminded me how far I'd strayed. Inside this small, dimly lit bathroom, the air was thick with anticipation, perfume, and heat. I stood still, staring at my reflection under the pale light. My lipstick was still perfect, my eyes wide with something between fear and desire. Malik moved first, stepping behind me like he had a claim to the space I took up. His presence was magnetic, his confidence undisturbed by hesitation. You sure you want this? He asked, his voice velvet soft against the back of my neck. I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure. But I wasn't walking away either. My silence spoke louder than any words. Dre moved next, leaning against the door, arms crossed, a slow smile pulling at his lips. You don't have to explain. We've seen that look before. What look? I asked, breathless. The one where a good girl finally stops pretending. His words struck somewhere deep. I wasn't a good girl tonight. I wasn't a wife. I was a woman on the edge, on the verge of doing something reckless, selfish, and unforgettable. Malik brushed a strand of hair from my shoulder, his fingers grazing my collarbone. I didn't flinch. Instead, I tilted my head slightly, surrendering to the moment. He leaned in closer, his lips tracing the shell of my ear. He doesn't see you, does he? That question ripped through my composure, like a knife. My chest tightened. Images of Jason flickered, him half listening during dinner, barely touching me in bed, always somewhere else, even when we were in the same room. No, I whispered. Malik's hands slid to my hips. Dre stepped closer, his heat joining the rising fog of desire curling around us. I was surrounded, boxed in by temptation, but I didn't feel trapped. I felt chosen. We'll show you what it feels like, Dre murmured, to be wanted. And that was the word that broke me, wanted. Not tolerated. Not managed. Not brushed off. Wanted. What happened next wasn't graceful.
It wasn't romantic.
It was raw, urgent, shameless. Malik kissed me first, his mouth confident, demanding. Dre's hands moved with purpose, exploring curves I'd long since forgotten were beautiful. My breath came in gasps, not from fear but from shock, at my own hunger, at how quickly shame dissolved beneath the heat of their touch. Time distorted. Minutes passed like seconds. The bathroom, small and grimy, transformed into a haven of stolen lust. The mirror above the sink reflected a version of me I barely recognized, wild-eyed, breathless, flushed with pleasure and panic. There was no room for hesitation. I gave in fully. No one called me Stephanie. No one asked about my life outside this room. And that was the freedom, total anonymity in mutual sin. Malik and Dre worked in perfect rhythm, switching roles, syncing glances, whispering praise like a language only I understood. Every nerve in my body fired. Every boundary I thought was firm crumbled. And through it all, a voice inside me screamed, "This isn't you." But another voice, louder, more defiant, whispered, "Yes, it is." And that terrified me. When it was over, silence rushed in like a tide. I pulled my dress back down, hands trembling. My lipstick was smeared. One earring missing. Malik adjusted his jacket, casual and calm, while Dre smoothed his shirt like we'd just finished a business meeting. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The deed was done. Malik leaned close one last time, placing something in my hand. A phone number. "If you ever want to be seen again," he said, "call." Then they were gone.
Just like that.
I stood alone in the bathroom, staring at my ruined reflection. My chest rose and fell in heavy waves. I looked like someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone alive. I should have felt disgust.
Shame. Guilt.
But instead, I felt hollow. Lightheaded. Empty in a way I couldn't name. I tucked the number into my purse without thinking. Mechanically, I reapplied my lipstick, wiped the sweat from my brow, and exited the bathroom like nothing happened. Back in the club, the music was louder, the lights harsher. I searched the crowd, but Malik and Dre had disappeared into the chaos. They hadn't looked back. Why would they? I found Lena near the bar, laughing with a man half her age. She didn't ask where I'd been. I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't think I could speak without breaking. We left shortly after. The ride home was quiet. My mind replayed every touch, every word, every flicker of pleasure and dread. It had all happened so fast. Too fast. When we pulled up in front of my house, Lena finally looked at me. "You good?" she asked, eyes laced with something close to suspicion. I nodded too quickly.
Yeah.
Just tired. Right. She didn't press. She never did. I appreciated that. Because if she had, I might have shattered right there in the passenger seat. Jason was asleep when I stepped inside. Our house smelled like lavender and laundry detergent. Familiar.
Clean.
Innocent. I walked upstairs, peeled off the dress slowly, folded it, hid it beneath my winter sweaters like it was a murder weapon. I stared at myself again in the bathroom mirror, this one brighter, crueler. My skin still tingled. My lips still buzzed. My heart still beat like it was trying to outrun something. I climbed into bed beside Jason. He didn't stir. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that tomorrow would be normal, that I could go back to being his wife, that no one would ever know. But deep down, I already understood. Something had changed. In me. And no matter how well I played the role, no matter how many smiles or dinners or Sunday mornings we shared, I could never fully be the same woman again. And I wasn't sure if that scared me or thrilled me. The days after the club passed like dreams I didn't quite remember having, blurry around the edges, stitched together by fragments of guilt, memory, and a strange, burning thrill that refused to leave me. On the surface, life resumed its rhythm. Jason still left early, still buried himself in work, and still barely looked at me over dinner. But I was no longer the same. I walked differently, thought differently. I'd stepped through a door in that club bathroom, and no matter how carefully I tried to close it behind me, it stayed cracked open. And every time I looked in the mirror, I saw her. The woman who said yes to two strangers. The woman who wanted to be wanted. That woman terrified me. But she was also the only part of me that felt alive. Jason, meanwhile, remained oblivious. I watched him more closely now, his routines, his distance, his refusal to ask questions. Part of me wondered if he knew on some instinctual level. Maybe he smelled the guilt on me. Or maybe, and this thought haunted me more, he didn't notice because he no longer cared. On Tuesday evening, he was late again. I sat at the table alone, pushing roasted chicken around my plate. My phone buzzed beside my wine glass. Unknown number. My heart skipped. I stared at it, hand frozen. Then the second buzz, a message. Thinking about you. Malik. I swallowed hard. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. Then came the second message. Say when. I didn't respond. But I didn't delete it either. 2 days passed. I avoided mirrors. Avoided Lena. Avoided thinking too hard. But the second night, as I folded laundry in silence, Jason 2 rooms away on a conference call, I felt something snap. Not a loud break. More like a quiet unraveling. Thread by thread. I picked up my phone. Where? I typed. The reply came instantly. Suite 309. Hotel Luma. Midnight. No emoji. No game. Just coordinates to another moment of collapse. I stared at the message, waiting for the guilt to stop me. It didn't. The hotel was upscale, quiet, discreet, the kind of place where secrets slept in every room. I wore black again. Not the same dress. This one softer, looser. Less armor. More surrender. The hallway to Suite 309 was carpeted in silence. My heels barely made a sound. I knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. Malik stood there in dark jeans and a fitted tee, his smile slow, knowing. No words. He stepped aside. I entered. The suite was warm, dimly lit, scented faintly of something woodsy and masculine. I heard water running in the bathroom. Malik noticed my gaze. Dre's here, he said casually, closing the door behind me. You didn't think we'd let you have just one, did you? I should have turned around right then. Should have told him this was a mistake. Instead, I took off my coat. The second time wasn't like the first. It wasn't rushed or messy. It was deliberate. It was worship. Malik and Dre didn't just touch, they studied. They didn't just take, they gave. With every look, every stroke, every whispered word, they reminded me that I had a body. That I was still a woman, not just a title. Wife. Employee.
Ghost.
Here I was center stage. They didn't ask about Jason. Didn't ask who I was outside these walls. I wasn't Stephanie the wife to them. I was desire made flesh. And for a few sacred hours, I let myself believe that was enough. Afterwards, we lay tangled in silence. Dre lit a cigarette and passed it between us. Malik traced circles on my back with one lazy finger. You're not going back to who you were before, Malik said softly. It wasn't a question. I don't know who that is anymore, I admitted. You know, Dre said, exhaling a stream of smoke. Most women lie to themselves their whole lives.
But you?
You've seen the truth now. What truth? That love without passion is a slow death. I didn't answer, because deep down I knew they were right. Jason loved me. But did he want me?
No.
Not like this. Not like they did. I left before dawn, slipping out into the quiet street like a shadow. The city was still sleeping. But inside me, something had fully woken up. Jason was in bed when I got home, breathing softly, turned away from my side. I stared at his back for a long time, wondering what he'd do if he knew. If he'd fight. If he'd even care. The next morning, he kissed my cheek on the way out. The first time in weeks. It meant nothing. Worse, it felt like too little, too late. The days blurred again. I didn't see Malik or Dre, but their presence haunted me like perfume on my skin. I couldn't concentrate at work. I skipped brunch with Lena. I was living in 2 worlds, one of comfort and numbness, the other of danger and clarity. One morning, as I sat in Jason's study paying bills, I noticed his laptop open on the side. A text thread was visible, barely. Curiosity itched. I clicked. The messages weren't recent, but they were there. Her name was Maya. The tone was casual, familiar, flirty. No outright declarations. No photos. But the intent bled through every word. Wish we could have finished our convo from last time. You always know how to make me laugh. Don't worry. I won't say anything to your wife. I froze. The blood drained from my face. Jason was cheating. Or had cheated. Or something in between. And suddenly everything made sense. The cold distance. The late nights. The emotional vacancy. I wasn't the only one who'd stepped out of bounds. He'd just done it quietly. cowardly. Somehow, I didn't feel angry. Not at first. I felt justified. And underneath that, relieved. Because now, the guilt was gone. The mirror didn't crack anymore when I looked into it. I saw myself clearly. No shame. No lies. Just truth. Jason and I had both stopped being faithful long ago. The only difference? I was brave enough to admit it. That night, we sat across from each other at dinner. I studied him while he talked about quarterly reports and market shifts. I watched the way he moved his fork, how he avoided eye contact. I could almost see the shadow of Maya behind him, just as Malik and Dre lingered behind me. We were both haunted. We were both pretending. And I knew, without a single doubt, that our marriage had become a beautiful performance wrapped around an empty stage. I smiled at him. He smiled back. But neither of us really saw the other anymore. And perhaps we never did.